My Bitcoin story is first ignored it, didn't care about money, until I kind of realized this peer-to-peer aspect of it. What I was excited about before, what I can do with the internet, like transferring information globally to other people, I now suddenly could do with value and make it programmable.
So when was Alby first launched and what was the first implementation of it?
The first thing that was built was the browser extension. The goal was to allow web applications to deeply integrate Lightning. The website can say, please send $1, send 1,000 sats to access this kind of article or something like that.
The way I understand it, it's like Alby without Alby Hub nowadays has more limitations than it used to.
You know, now 3 years ago, if you would have asked me, I would have expected us to be further than we are now.
Nothing at all is free in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Users who might think that the Lightning network is free, they fire up their wallet of Satoshi. They probably don't realize that wallet of Satoshi makes money through the fees in and out of their wallet.
People, don't be afraid of Nostr. You don't have to have a master's degree in computer science to get on Nostr. A bachelor's in network technologies will do fine.
Bumi, welcome to the Bitcoin Infinity Show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here. So, yeah.
Yeah, good to see you, Bumi. You're developing a one of our favorite apps, which is Alby and Alby Hub, and we're going to dig into that whole thing and see where it started and where it's going and how it works and why people should use it. But first of all, I think you should give our listeners a little introduction to yourself. Who are you? How did you find Bitcoin? How did you end up where you are right now? So please give us the TLDR on Bumi.
Yeah, cool. I try. Yeah, I have a technical background. I'm a software engineer since ever, actually. Really since school, like, I don't know, was excited about hacking on the computer and trying out what can be done and how these things work and building stuff. Got excited about the internet back then, being connected to all the people around the world. It was super exciting to build a website, a web application that then people on the other side of the planet can access. And this was driving me actually all the time. After university or during university, I was actually launching with a few friends a software consultancy where we built web applications for various startups and medium-sized companies in Europe. We actually happened to work quite a bit with some fintech applications, built some prepaid card systems, some merchant services and things like that. I was always interested in, as I said, like the internet, the communication aspect of it, but there was then always like a transactional aspect to it, right? So you're transacting on the internet, so you needed some kind of digital money transfer. And this is also at some point when I got into or heard first about Bitcoin, like my Bitcoin story is, I think, quite a typical one. First ignored it, didn't care about money, didn't care about this whole setup. At first I ignored it as it's some kind of, Linden dollars or World of Warcraft coin, kind of this kind of thing. Until I kind of realized that this is actually, this peer-to-peer aspect of it. So, okay, what I was excited about before, what I can do with the internet, like transferring information globally to other people, I now suddenly could do with value and make it programmable. And yeah, this is what kind of got me into the rabbit hole. After a while, I then quit working at the software consultancy to focus on that more, to learn more about it, to work on some open source projects. That was actually pre-Lightning times. But back then it was already about the idea of how can applications use this new programmable money that we have there and what can we do with that. And yeah, over the time, this happened then what now became Alby. Yeah, this is kind of what got me here and got me on your show, I guess. So yeah.
So when was Alby first launched, and what was the first implementation of it? Like how did it look like in beta, or like when you first launched it?
Yeah, I mean the first thing that was built was the browser extension, right? And as I said, the goal was to allow web applications to deeply integrate Lightning, so to really like have a native integration, like to really that a website can say, please send $1, send 1,000 sats to access this kind of article or something like that, and this not with scanning a QR code or having to switch to another wallet or something like that, to really have like a seamless integration, a seamless programmable integration. And for that, the goal was to teach the browser to talk to the Lightning Network. I mean, initially, I actually contributed to a Joule. Some of the people might still remember that. That was also one of the early browser extensions that exactly did that. It was kind of a front end for LND. But the goal was like there, and also with Alby then, to teach the browser talk to the Lightning Network. What became Alby then actually was now started 4 years ago, Christmas, pretty exactly 4 years ago at a Fulmo hackathon, where I wrote one of the first prototypes, the first lines of code of the browser extension. I quickly then got support from some people from the Bitcoin design community. That was incredible, valuable, from Christoph, from Johns, and so on. So, who also had this idea that, you can iterate on the web really fast. It's a much more accessible platform for developers, but also then for the users. And the first launch of the extension in the App Store, that was at the first Adopting Bitcoin conference. That was then November later, like nearly a year later. So that's 3 years ago. And from that, we were always experimenting with the topic, how Lightning can be integrated into apps, and what do we need to do for that.
And are there like legal things you have to consider when you do a thing like this, or like, can you get around them somehow? Is this like counted as a finance thing by the authorities, by our overlords, or is there a way to slalom your way out of that? Like, how does that work?
I mean, as the things are growing, this becomes more important, for sure, right? So, and I think it's as the project or the company now is growing, and as the whole ecosystem is growing, these questions become more important. And I know our focus for sure is like on building software and tools that the user can run, that users can run independently. We provide services for that. We provide services on top of that. That we, this is kind of our stake, our approach there, I would say. And I think that's also the important part, right? So we will probably also in a bit talk a bit about Alby Hub, our new wallet, where we especially focus on the self-sovereign part, the self-custodial part, that the users have the full control and also responsibility for that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, like because the way I understand it, it's like Alby without Alby Hub nowadays has more limitations than it used to, and like you're sort of steering the users in the right direction, so they go, like, if you want to use this tool in an optimal way, you sort of need to go this self-sovereign route, and you need to learn what you're like indirectly forcing people to learn how Bitcoin works and how Lightning works, and to know what they're doing, basically. So like there's, and that's I love that, because like that's the only way we don't get the sovereignty if we don't understand what we're doing. Then we just back to trusting a third party again. So like was that a big motivation for doing this, or did it have more to do with like, we don't want to be a financial institution, we want people to take care of their own things?
No, it for sure is a big one, right? So I mean, we this is how it should be, right? This is what the great achievement of the technology that we're using, right? So it needs, in my point of view, it needs to be there. That's the goal. And it was actually from day one. In the browser extension, in the browser extension, you could always connect to an LND node, and we expanded that. You can connect to a core Lightning node and Eclair and all, like the different ones. So the goal with the extension was like just to have this small bridge between the user's node that they are running wherever and what's running in the browser.
But it wasn't the default, right? You didn't like that was for high tech users, and not like if you just a normal normie user would just install the thing and run it in your nodes.
The story there is like, I mean, you had the two buttons, right? You have to just go with an account or set up the one, connect to a node. And where we came from is we think, Lightning needs use cases. What do we do with it? Payments do not stand on its own. It's a necessity ultimately, right? So, I mean, we might be excited about doing that. So we're sending sats back and forth. This is cool. But ultimately, it is a bit of a necessity for doing something else, right? I want to support a podcast. I like the content. That's why I'm streaming sats to it. So I like this artist, this music. That's why I'm sending sats over to that. So it's always, it comes with a use case somehow. And we wanted to make these or focus on these use cases, which we think is important. And this is where we came from. And so we wanted to be rather close to the user and these use cases and developers, quite high level. And I also believed, there is a lot of development happening in the core, let's say, core Lightning infra, the node implementations and so on. The technology moves further. And to be honest, I would have also, now 3 years ago, if you would have asked me, I would have expected us to be further than we are now in that development. So yes, things are moving quickly, but I think there is still I would have expected it to be a bit faster.
And why do you think that is? Like, why do you think it's slower than you thought it would be?
I don't have a good answer. I mean, ultimately, it's a very complicated topic, right? It's a complicated topic. Lightning is kind of complicated setup. So you need very different environments if you want to run it. In the sense of you run it on a phone versus you run it on a Raspberry Pi or on an Umbra machine or on a desktop computer and so on. It's just, I don't know. It's just generally complicated. And I think one is, how do you say it? Overestimating the speed, but underestimating the effect of it, something like that. So you know what I mean? So I probably expected it to be happening faster, but when it happens, I will not have expected all the implications that it will have. So it's just a gradual development.
Who said that? I think it was like Steve Jobs or someone who said everyone overestimates what will happen in a year, but everyone underestimates what will happen in a decade.
Something like
and
that.
I think
exactly.
That's spot on, I think.
Yeah.
And
to finish that quickly, so
sure.
What we wanted then to make it easy for people, because connecting an LND node is very hard. We had to deal with Tor connections and whatnot, which is super hard in the browser, all these things. So we wanted people to try it out, actually, to get started quickly. And this is where the account then was introduced, to make it easy for people to get started with it, to get a Lightning address, to use it for podcasting, to support these kind of use cases. And it kind of grew quite nicely. At some point, we also then limit new signups. So it was invitation only for a long time. And I think now we are at the point where, first of all, the technology is far enough that we can implement new wallets. LDK is great. Greenlight things like this, all these kind of things happened. and these allowed us now to build a wallet, a self-sovereign wallet that works in the environments that we want, like the browser extension for podcasting and on the mobile setups within deep app integrations and so on. So it was this process. So that's why, yes, initially it was like connect your L&D node. We make it easy for you to do that with the account. We run things for you to get that kicked off. And now we are at the point, like we had to slow this down. And now we're at the point where the technology is ready that we can offer these self-sovereign setups, I think.
So just to close this point out, like does it depress you, or like are you disappointed that it's slower than you thought it would be, or are you fine with it? Like how do you? Is there a point to things taking a bit more time, that the technology has time to mature and all of these things? What are your thoughts around that?
I actually think it depends a bit on the day when you ask me that question. I for sure have days where I think like, come on.
Yeah,
we already wanted to do this like a year ago or 2 years ago, and we're still not there. We're still doing the kind of same things. But no, overall, I think it's a good thing. Like it's maturing quite, stable and not in a kind of a hype, and then it's dying or so. Like I think we're in a marathon, not in a sprint here, right? So and we must remember that, and that's why it's for the long run. So and we're all like in the space, I guess, are really excited about still doing it, and we'll continue to push this forward, right?
No, you're absolutely right. Like you have to see it as a marathon and not a sprint. But it's hard sometimes. Like, go up number, and like it happened. Technology advancement. Like it's interesting what it does to the psyche. So so can you like, where do we take this? What if a new user wants to set up his own Alby hub and wants to run his own Lightning node and do the whole thing, like be a self-sovereign Bitcoiner? First of all, why should someone do that? I mean, I know the answer, but anyway, or we know the answer. But what is your answer to that question, and how do they do it? Like, what are the steps they need to take, and at what point can you truly say that you're self-sovereign? Big question, I know, but do your best.
For sure, a big question, and it's for sure like to that one, it's for sure a stretch, right? There is no black and white, obviously, for that, and we also have this in the hub. This question actually quite a few times, because what we do there is we try to give users a default, like a lot, like take away some of the complicated questions, like, for example, who do I open a channel with? What's a good channel partner? Where do I get liquidity from? These kind of harder questions in Lightning, where we say, okay, we give you a default. We give you defaults that kind of are good and give you a good experience. We also try to have the requirements of running the hub really low. So, for example, you do not need to sync a whole Bitcoin core. If you can, you should, but you do not need to do that. There is a remote blockchain data that you can that is kind of used, right? Now the question is, are you fully self-sovereign if you are relying on something like that? Can be obviously discussed. And it always depends, again, for me, like on the use cases on another focus. So what I think is important, that the user is in full control over, obviously, the keys and the funds, and can decide, can always move, has configuration options there also. Like, for example, also with the channels, we recommend certain channels and work with the LSPs there. But okay, it's an open network. You can do whatever you want with it. It's also open source wallet, so you can even do whatever you want with it, which I think is very important. And I think only if you are self-sovereign, we can, and self-custodial, so we can enable some of the things that we want. That you have a global network. That it doesn't matter anymore where the listener of a podcast is, where the podcast host is, and we're just streaming Satz all around. And this is not going to be possible with any of the services out there if you're not doing that in a self-sovereign way, I think. So.
No, and I can only speak from my own experience. I run Bitcoin Knots on my Start9 here, and I just set up the Alby Hub and followed the instructions, watched the videos and everything. It's pretty straightforward. It's like, yeah, sure, you have to be somewhat technical, but you don't have to figure everything out yourself. There are pretty good instructions and pretty good guidelines to follow, and have you done this? And there's a little health check for the node, right? You have some health score, like how's my node feeling at the moment? What does it need? It's something like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we tried to translate some of the complicated Lightning and also Bitcoin terminology to a more, let's say, language that the user knows, a user-friendly language. And the health check is one of the things where you can just say, okay, it's healthy, it's good. So or it needs attention. And then you can say, okay, what do you need to do? You don't have a channel, or your channel is imbalanced. So, okay, then we can direct you to say, okay, this is what you actually need to look at. And also, I think you mentioned the word steering there. I also think this is something where we can it should be easy for people to get started, and then they can learn, they can grow, right? So that's just maybe you don't want to run Bitcoin Knots on your Start9 in the beginning. But you want to, send a few sets here and there, and then this is potentially even start with some I don't know, custodial mobile wallet, and then you get there, and this is a journey, right? And this, I think, be a part of that journey.
Absolutely. Nobody knows what the goal is, but the journey is fantastic. And I mean, the thing is, if I click my little node health icon at the top right corner in the Alby Hub interface here, I instantly get to the Alby user guide, which is sort of looks like a whole Wikipedia for how this thing works. And I get to node health and ensuring the reliability and the efficiency of your node's payments. And very clearly states what the Lightning node needs, like spending balance and receiving capacity, like outbound and inbound liquidity, and what the thresholds are and what you need to do. And it's so it's very intuitive, and everything's very clickable and takes you to the right place when you fiddle around and click on things. And I like that way of learning new software.
That's good to hear, even too nice.
Yeah. No, so if you want to fiddle around with these things, I definitely recommend this because there's a lot to learn, and it's fun if you're a nerd. Otherwise, it's probably not that fun. Do you think it's fun, Luke? How much have you fiddled around with this thing at this point?
Yeah, about the same. I mean, I've got the same setup. I really like the Alby Hub as an interface for my node, my Start9, the same here, because previously it was like Thunder Hub or Ride the Lightning or something, and those are really way more advanced in terms of interfaces. So I really like what the Alby Hub is for an interface for a self-hosted node. What I'm curious about is Alby Hub as essentially a light cloud node. At least that's my conception of what Alby Hub is if it's hosted with Alby. Is that how you would describe that offering? And by the way, I've tried this one as well. I think bottom line was I just didn't really need to have one as active use. But I did switch over one of my custodial Alby accounts to the cloud Alby Hub, and I gave that a try. It was a really smooth experience, and it felt a lot like basically running a cloud node, except with a lot of that so to say complexity and self-management abstracted away. So can you tell us about that and what kind of your goals are with that offering?
Like one goal of the hub was that it runs wherever, ideally, and it runs like from a small, actually Raspberry Pi Zero. I have some Raspberry Pi Zeros here, like a $20, $30 hardware device where you can put it on, up to like then a cloud offering. And one of the things also to mention here is Alby Hub is an always on node. Lightning nodes actually, to do the things that we want to do, the Lightning node needs to be online or at least to be woken up. Some others are doing that on a mobile phone. You might get a push notification and then it does something, things like that. We want the node actually also to be automated. It's kind of like we say, it's like it's not only a wallet for humans, but it's also for machines, right? We can talk a bit about NWC as a protocol there also in a bit if you want, because that's kind of the protocol that enables this setup. But yeah, that's why it's an always on node, which is also reducing a lot of the development complexity if it's just online and you don't need to deal with waking up nodes and things like that. So, okay, it's always on. Like this is the setup that we have. It runs everywhere, and we want with the cloud offering then make it easy for people to run it. To start it. It runs a VPS. It boots up a VPS, installs it, and gives the user access to it.
So it's still fully a self-contained, basically, unit for each user then.
Yes.
Great.
Yes. It's a fully self-contained unit for each user. As the whole data is all encrypted and with the password and only in memory. And again, here we are at it's kind of this kind of range. There are people who are saying if you run things in the cloud, it's not yours. Which yes, you can say that. And on the other hand, okay, you need to compile the operating system on your own, or even put the hardware together, because you don't want to trust on anybody, right? So that's why I see it as a range. And the cloud offering is just like makes it super simple. It's like a one-click VPS node is pulled up. The hub is installed. People can go through the onboarding, need to set up this encryption password, get the seed, and the onboarding process is exactly the same as if you run it on your own hardware. We also emphasized there, for example, on node migration, that you can migrate between these options, which in Lightning is also still a bit tricky because you need to have the state, the Lightning state, the channel state, and so on. To make this possible. But I think the cloud offering is just the easiest thing for people to get started. So, and also for us, a first try in providing a paid service, monetizing some of our services.
Oh, and actually, that's a really good point here because, there didn't really seem to be any kind of monetization previously. If I'm right, there were fees on the Alby channels previously, right? Like piping in and out of Alby basically had a reasonable fee just on the Lightning layer side of it, right? But now it's a full blown service. Is that correct?
Yeah. We were recently, at some point, also experimenting with fees. Generally, the question is, transaction fees. How do you do that? Also, it's quite an interesting topic, actually. How do you do that in a self-sovereign way, in a self-custodial way? How do wallets charge? Is generally quite an interesting topic, I would say. What are the business models for wallets out there? generally an interesting topic. And with the hosting, it's quite straightforward, right? Because we provide ultimately hosting for the user. The user knows that, the user understands it. There are other services, Voltage is doing that for the LND nodes, for example. And so we have like this much smaller, much more focused offering with the Alby Hub there.
Hello there. You should use code infinity like everywhere on the internet. For instance, for the MicroStrategy Bitcoin for Corporations conference. For BTC Prague, for BTC Hell, come to Helsinki in August. And make sure to check out Stamp Seed, which is a fantastic little seed plate. You can get the Infinity over 21 million special plates that we collaborated with them in making. Use code Infinity for a discount. Same thing goes for our favorite hardware wallet, the Bitbox 02. So it's bitbox.swiss to get that. The Bitcoin Advisor for Bitcoin inheritance planning and so on and so forth. And general advice, bitcoinadvisor.com. And make sure to like, subscribe, and brush your teeth and all that for the bitcoininfinity.com. And get some stuff and some books. Great to have you here.
Yeah, I mean, sort of philosophically, I think the thing is here that nothing at all is free in the Bitcoin ecosystem, and users who might think that the Lightning network is free, they fire up their wallet of Satoshi. They probably don't realize that wallet of Satoshi makes money through the fees in and out of their wallet, right? And everyone providing Lightning infrastructure, all along the way, the Lightning service providers, hosts somewhere. In order to put that capital up, there has to be an incentive somewhere, right? And I mean, this kind of gets into some questions about what does the future of Lightning look like, right? Because at some level, the amount of capital needed to create Lightning channels, to be able to route a sufficient amount, I mean, that's getting higher and higher in fiat terms, basically, as the Bitcoin price goes higher and higher. Do you see Lightning as still a place where individual users, individual Bitcoin holders can use as a medium of exchange mechanism in a self-sovereign way? Like, how does the future look to you?
Yeah. Super interesting. And I think Lightning is still like the best solution that we're having. And it's generally interesting, like for a user or a company to directly use it and be participating in this network and directly use it, as we do with the Alby Hub. So I for sure see a future there. I also see a future that these problems can be overcome. For what I, for example, also find interesting in the hub, we say you have to have a channel. We don't do just-in-time channels or things like that. Also, again, these trying to be smarter than the user and things like that adds a lot of complexity. We say, okay, you need a channel and it costs money. And yes, it's a challenge to explain that to users, but a lot actually, once they understand it, they're like, okay, kind of makes sense, and are okay with that also. And so I for sure see that there is great possibility there. And I also think what we experimenting with there is that we do not necessarily need to solve things on a technical level, but we can also solve it on a like service offering economical level. For example, paying for the first channel as part of a subscription fee that guarantees that a channel is open, or that guarantees that you can balance the channel and things like that, and not necessarily as like something that you just need to have a upfront cost to pay something, and have a technical solution for that with like something like just-in-time channels and splicing and these kind of things. So I think there is a lot of potential that can be where we can approach these problems on various ways. So
Yeah, and I guess the main thing is there will always be trade-offs for users who want to keep it as easy as possible, I suppose. But as long as the options are there for users to use it in as self-sovereign a way as possible, then that's a good thing. But I think with the cost of capital rising and rising to run these things, maybe it's going to be more and more rare in the future. And in that scenario, Lightning, we've been having a lot of conversations about how Lightning is even positioning itself as the layer 2 that the layer 3s are going to operate on top of, or as a link between other layer 2s that are somehow more accessible to the average user. And for example, Liquid being probably the most prominent other layer 2 solution, and it comes with its own set of trade-offs, of course. But in a lot of ways, it's more similar to the Bitcoin based chain, and the cost to use Liquid is also somewhat lower, somewhat abstracted away. And the biggest benefit is that you can still hold your keys with that, even though technically the Bitcoin is with a federation. So it's kind of a middle ground here. But how do you see the relationship between Lightning and other layer 2s like Liquid, like the ARC protocol, like any of these others that are mooted to be coming up in the next months and years?
I mean, as you say, it's for me, they're always like trade-offs, and it needs to be decided, okay, what the user and the company needs. I believe very much that Liquid Lightning is obviously the lingua franca, right, of these kind of systems. And we can integrate and move in and out of other layers or other systems through Lightning. So this is for sure quite interesting. I mean, also eCash is the topic there, right? If you talk about Cashew as a layer on top of that, which is solving quite some of interesting problems, right? That I can like privacy, or like I have like just like this token that I can transfer quite easily, quite fast. No needs for accounts and these kind of things, and then have Lightning interacting between different mints or so. Or if I want to move out of eCash again, I go to my Lightning wallet, and I think these are for sure exciting developments that are somehow complementary. So I don't see those. I mean, some people always talk a bit about competition. I see those rather as complementary.
Right. And I mean, to that point, what you said about basically Lightning can be a way of moving in and out of these layer 2s into the base layer. That's sort of the trend we've been hearing a little bit, is that Lightning might end up being this hidden second layer that all of these other services are built on top of, essentially, like what you're saying with Cashew, Fedimint, and really, like a lot of exchanges or wallets or things like that can also be sort of considered a layer 3 on top of Lightning if they come in and out of that, right? And so Lightning as the infrastructure of Bitcoin as medium of exchange seems to be the direction we're going. And so do you see any challenges for Alby itself in this kind of environment? It's sort of operating on the edge, whereas we have all these Lightning service providers operating in the middle. Do you see any challenges as the market trends towards something like this, where Lightning is really used as an interoperability layer between all of these other services, as opposed to this maybe more self-sovereign system?
I mean, from a product perspective, that's for sure always a challenge, right? What do you focus on? What problem do you solve? And maybe we try to solve, like, the Lightning channel onboarding problem for an end user and put a lot of effort in there. And then, I don't know, in a year's time, ARC is around and we don't need that anymore, right? And then, okay, how does the product then look like? So this is for sure a bit of the question and the challenge. I still believe, like, as I said, those are complementary and make Lightning easier to use, ultimately, and, more widely to use. But it's, in my point of view, there is, at least speaking right now, it's worth it, and there is no other option than giving users Lightning nodes. So
this is something we preach all the time, that every single Bitcoin thing is complementary to every other single Bitcoin thing, because as Bitcoiners, we have the incentive to help one another with whatever we're doing, because anything that is good for Bitcoin is good for Bitcoiners, and vice versa. Anything that's good for a Bitcoiner is good for Bitcoin. So like we have this, which is I think that's completely profound, and I talk about it all the time, and I think it's a very underrated aspect of what this thing is, because it's us helping one another and us collaborating. That's the whole point. It's money without interventionism is just that. It's human beings becoming better because we're boosting one another. I love it. So where we're going here, where do you see Alby? Like, do you have a vision for Alby like 5 years from now, or where do you see Alby then? Like, what are you hoping for? I say 5 years because I think you would wish for 2, but it might be 5. So what kind of users does Alby have, and like how has the app changed going into the future? What's your vision for that?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we want the world, especially online, to transact using Bitcoin, any layer on Bitcoin. But Bitcoin is the asset, like the universal asset that's going to be used, and this makes a lot of things possible, new applications, new use cases possible, generating new monetization options for services possible, which is, I think a very important aspect. Also, like if you look at the Nostr and the sapping, like having new monetization options, self-sovereign monetizations options in there, instead of like having big centralized platforms where I post that. So I think this is a fundamental requirement of solving even a lot of other problems that the internet has, and has because we didn't have something like Bitcoin before, and we want to provide apps and services to make this possible for end users, but also for companies, for developers, and this is the goal that we were working towards too. And it's a bit of a search, right? So, I mean, I don't exactly know how the world's going to be looking like when we achieve that, or when we make this possible. But I very much believe that it's going to be quite exciting. And then also, as a lot of companies, they are able to provide a lot of services in such a world.
No, this is fantastic. This is sort of the answer I was looking for, because like this whole thing, like with especially with Nostr, which is just a whole bunch of ideas in going in all sorts of direction, and just like throw things at the wall and see what works. And I think the most adaptive people will win in a situation like this, because it's this chaotic yet beautiful free market of ideas kind of environment where we'll just have to wait and observe where this thing wants to go, right? And what things will be boosted and what things will fade out. We don't know that yet, but we have a damn near perfect mechanism for sorting out what works and what doesn't, and since we have damn near perfect money. So that's I think that's to some extent what we all are doing in Bitcoin. We're all trying to figure out what our role in this is. And like the closest thing, me and Luke, we now see ourselves as conviction deepeners, not necessarily orange pillars, because I think we're a bit too weird for that. So we probably don't orange pill that many newbies because they think we're too extreme or something, especially half of us. But I think we can be conviction deepeners and help people help remind people what got them into this in the first place and why it's so awesome. So like we also try to adapt to whatever's going on, and we're always keen to learn new things. And I think that's a common theme among Bitcoiners and Nostriches, or whatever Nostr people are called. Luke, what are your thoughts? Go ahead.
Just to add a quick thought on there, because I think this is, we put out all these ideas, all these conversations lead to new ideas. Like every person who is part of this space somehow, with the goal of bringing Bitcoin forward, will lead to new ideas. And so it's kind of this kind of explosion. But we don't know where it leads to, right? So.
No, the journey. Back to the journey. The journey is everything.
Yeah, and I mean, I think here, since you touched on Nostr, like I almost forgot that was really one of the things that put Alby on the map in a lot of ways. Was that Alby was one of the ways you could use not just Lightning but Nostr. Connecting your Nostr keys to the Alby extension is still one of the best ways to manage that. It's still the way that I manage the complicated NSEX, safe NSEX procedure, holding your Nostr keys. So what's kind of the link there? How do you see Nostr and Alby going into the future here together?
I mean, the common thing is like you own it, right? You own, like, a key or keys represent what you are and who you and what you own in a digital world, right? And in Nostr, the key represents your kind of identity, like your profile in the Nostr world. So this actually, in my point of view, goes hand in hand. That's why it was also like when Nostr was like coming around and still quite early, it kind of completely made sense to also have this in the extension, because like I use a website and I bring my wallet to the website, which also contains my identity, right? The website can request a signature from me to publish then something. And this is, the great achievement that we have, that we do not need to rely on these big centralized platforms anymore, where the identity and the money and everything is owned by them. They provide services, a UI and whatnot, and discovery service and whatnot. But I can move anywhere because I can just take my identity and my money with me. So, and we have this also in the physical meat space somehow, right? I have my wallet and I have an identity card potentially in there. I have my money in there, and I go to a shop, and this is where what I do. And so I think this fits very well together. So this underlying concept fits very well together. And ultimately, I think I want to use an app, and I want to give that app certain permissions to do something on my behalf. So for example, I can say, yes, I want to post something. So the app requests a signature. Okay, I want to pay a user. Okay, the app requests a payment from me. So, and this is in a programmatical way. So that's why it can be automated. I trust the Primal client or Snort or whatever it is. So I can say, yes, whenever I zap up to 1,000 Satoshis, please just send it out of my wallet. If I press the post a note, please just sign it and publish it. But if the app wants to change my profile details, then request a confirmation or something like that. And I think with that, we can actually have quite nice user experiences where the user owns their data and make it, but at the same time, make it easy for app developers to build like all new kinds of applications.
And do you see any scaling issues with Nostr? I know people who think Nostr is a bit of a clusterfuck at the moment already because of like it's the lack of leadership is a good thing and a bad thing, right? It's unclear what Nostr wants to be and what directions it wants to go in. So like, do you see any scaling issues with Nostr going into the future, or do you think it will all just magically sort itself out and be super streamlined within a couple of years?
No, I think for sure there are scaling issues in the sense of like, what are we going to use it for, and how do we convince people that it's the great way to do it? So because ultimately it's a bit harder to manage keys than to just signing up for Facebook or X or whatever it is, right? So it's also a bit of an educational part that we need to do there, I think. And but that people are willing to do that, they need to see the advantage there. I don't know how. What is your take on that? I think
I'm envisioning something here at the moment, like something like Alby Hub, and how Alby sort of steered me into running the Alby Hub instead and becoming more self-sovereign in that sense. Like, or and it's doing that for users of the Alby wallet. Like, could Alby also do that for, like, here's how you get on Nostr in a custodial, non-sovereign way. We'll keep your keys and whatnot. And after that, sort of as you've been on Nostr for a while, you're all of a sudden given options that maybe you should take this more seriously and fire up your own account and get a new key pair, and this is how you do this, and these are the apps you should allow to see this and not that and whatnot. Maybe there's, I'm just thinking out loud here, maybe there's a way to steer people into running Nostr the correct way, in the same way that Alby Hub is steering people in the right direction on Lightning.
For sure, interesting idea. For sure, maybe it's like that. So I think one problem might be a bit like that. We need a bit something like key rotation or so for that, because like if like you cannot simply move to another key because it's attached to your profile. This is easier in Lightning because I use the Lightning network and I send sats around. And if I want to use a different wallet, then I just transfer the sats over there and I continue, and it has no downside. Whereas if I use a different Nostr key, I'm starting pretty much from scratch, at least right now. I think this is a technical problem that somehow needs to be solved, but for sure an interesting thing. I think what Fountain is doing is quite interesting there, for example, also. And I think it goes a bit in the direction, right? So they give each Fountain podcast user a key, but you can also bring your own key and also use the keys in somewhere else. So it goes a bit in the direction, I think, as you're saying, and it has a very focused usage for podcasting there. Are you using that? Have you looked at that?
Yeah. Well, Fountain is super cool, and we've been a featured show off and on since forever, and we love Fountain and streaming sats and stuff, and also there are so many directions they can take that in, and like a whole new way of monetizing music, for instance, for artists and stuff. Like you could put an album on there, and instead of like Spotify streams and trusting a third party, you get saps for when people listen to your songs and stuff. I mean, there's so much to do here in all of these things. And I mean, just a tip here. If you want to get on Nostr, if you're not yet on Nostr, I recommend going to deargigi.com. Our lovely tech wizard friend / philosopher friend has a great beginner's guide to Nostr. That's what I did. Is that what you did too, Luke?
Yeah. Nostr is like getting. I can't remember the exact early days, but it was hard to find correct information. Gigi's website is fantastic, but yeah, get involved. These days, Primal is one of the easier ways to onboard onto Nostr. Damus, I think, as well, but Primal is pretty good with their app and the website. You can get started quite quickly. I think you can even get a wallet on Primal. without a lot of issues. And so, I mean, you can start, but again, then you have to take the self-sovereignty journey if you want to. And one of Primal's downsides, not having Zaps available on their desktop version, is solved by something like Alby. So, I mean, all of these things are working together at the moment, and it's just going to be really interesting to see how the ecosystem shapes up in the next months and years, basically.
Yeah, and we have some interesting Nostr projects coming up ourselves too. I won't spill too many beans on that because we've decided to be a bit more secretive about it, I think, Luke, right?
I'm gonna guess it's out by the time this is out, but no promises. So you'll
we don't know exactly what it will look like yet as of at the time of this recording, but we have some stuff coming up for sure. So and we love like experimenting and trying out new stuff and new ways of doing things with Bitcoiners. It's great.
Nice. So how do you see the future of Nostr there? Like, this is like you're focusing on that then also?
Yeah, I think there's like there's a risk of centralization for sure, but I think like if you compare it to how email was supposed to be more decentralized and everyone was supposed to run their own stuff. Supposed is a weird word here maybe, but right now, and almost everyone is using a centralized email service. And I think Nostr has a potential of going in that direction where everyone's it has a risk of doing that. Then again, Nostr is born out of a totally different set of people and a different movement, a different mindset. There's also a risk of Nostr not really going anywhere anytime soon because like there's no... as I said, the pros and cons to there not being a leader. If you have a strong leader, you can take your thing and move it in a certain direction faster, for sure. Then again, I love that Nostr exists as an alternative, as a lifeboat for free speech for the entire globe. And I love that people are working on this stuff, and I love that people are passionate about it. We all have, as human beings, we have a limited time bandwidth, right? So we have to put our focus and attention somewhere, and we're trying to do our part in Nostr. Not by developing apps or like pushing this or that super hard, but we're trying. Every pod episode we release, for instance, is Nostr first, including Fountain, of course. So we are trying to be what's the word? On the forefront is a bit too chest poundy. I would say we're trying to walk the walk as much as our time constraints permit. Is that a good way of putting it, Luke, you think?
Yeah, and also same thing with Bitcoin generally. Again, we're not making applications or anything, but we're just trying to spread the word. And I mean, we love hearing about things that we use ourselves, like within the Bitcoin ecosystem and all the great development that's going on. So that's why it's been great to have you on, Bumi. As said, we've been big fans of Alby. Honestly, Knut's been wearing this yellow Alby polo like all the time in episodes the last couple of months. So yeah, like we're fans and we use it and want to see you guys succeed. So yeah.
Yes. Somewhat ironic that I forgot the t-shirt this specific episode, but I have been wearing it for like a month in a row. Almost never washed it, but it's in the washing machine right now, so that's why I'm wearing another t-shirt. Yes.
It's a good thing no one else is allowed in that room. Hey, Knut, probably smells awful.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Shout out to Tomek. So he has quite some good swag.
Yeah. So, no, the logo is super cool. It's the Cyber Hornet, but a friendlier version, a bee, Cyber Bee.
The Cyber Bee, yeah.
So, Bumi, was there anything else you wanted to discuss with us? Anything else going on in the Alby world? Anything we've missed?
I would actually, I don't know if I can quickly come back to your email comparison, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Because like this is what I also hear often, and I'm wondering what's your take on, because like in Nostr you still own the identity, whereas in email, if I have a Gmail address, kind of like I'm still relying on Gmail. Yes, we can say it's very hard to run an email server and so on, because of spam reasons mainly. But also like once my email address is out, it's because of I'm relying on the name, kind of hard to switch somehow. And I think that's a bit of a difference in Nostr, don't you think so? Or ultimately of the concept that I have a key representation. That's something that I can take with me.
Yeah, it's a flawed metaphor for sure, and maybe not a fair comparison. It's kind of hard to see where it's going. I do think that's a problem I mean, if you compare grants for developers to a strict hierarchical company model and free market competition, there's a sort of a difference there where if you get a grant, it's a bit like and this is not to bash any Bitcoin grants to Bitcoin developers and Nostr developers or anything like that. I'm just trying to point out a difference between grants and actually having to compete on the free market. And that is that grants is a bit like, foreign aid, where you can throw money at a project and the receiving end has no obligations to actually deliver something that is that will survive free market competition. And I think that there's a subtle problem there that is never really addressed. So there are a handful of developers in all sorts of projects, not only related to Nostr but related to Bitcoin stuff too, that can receive grants from somewhere, and that's all swell and fine. But they don't have an obligation to deliver something back that will actually work and will actually solve a real world problem and will actually be useful for someone later down the line. Then again, this is an exploratory phase we're in, where we're trying to figure out what these things are and where they want to go. And I guess you have to do it that way to a certain extent. But I'm looking forward to when actual products and actual things that survive free market competition come out on the other side, and not just these hobby projects. Wouldn't it be cool if? Yeah. I'd also like to add that I very much like these 180 IQ developers like yourself, working on Nostr and Bitcoin stuff rather than creating their own shitcoins, because that's a complete waste of everyone's time and money, in my opinion. Like, it's good that they're not developing Ethereum bullshit anymore. So that's good. If I'm going to say something positive.
No, on that, I'm very much with you. And we have to get out of this like kind of phase where, it's a fun side project or a grant funded kind of thing into something that survives the free market and the decision of the actual users, right? So I think that's a very important topic. So
and it's true for some Bitcoin stuff too. Like some people want to address problems that are not really problems in the eyes of the users. So like we'd all like everyone else to use Bitcoin in a more sovereign way, but we don't really need the solutions for that before people actually want that stuff. Like so it's sometimes it feels like people are trying to solve problems that might be problems at some point in the future, but you're missing, you're not solving the incentive problem. It's like it's a bit like a perverse inverted version of the war on drugs, which failed because it's a war on this is a long shot, but it failed because it's a war on supply when it should have been a war on demand. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm trying to express a train of thought here, which is not fully percolated down to what it should be in my brain. So, yeah, random brain farts.
I think we'll, I think we'll just pull it right back to then. Bumi, was there anything else you wanted to discuss? It's been a great conversation. The floor is yours.
The one thing to point out is maybe we can talk a bit about that. It's also a bit related to Nostr, is Nostr Wallet Connect, NWC. Actually, I often like to just call it NWC because it might mislead people that they need a Nostr profile or a Nostr account for that. It is using the Nostr infrastructure and the whole Nostr concept, but not in a social media kind of way, but it's using that one for applications to interact with the wallet. So you can imagine it that actually an application is sending a direct message, an encrypted direct message through a Nostr relay to the wallet, and the wallet is then processing that request to this information of this direct message. For example, making a payment or creating an invoice or something like that, or giving back the balance to the application. And I think that's, a quite powerful concept that Nostr enables, or the Nostr ecosystem enables, and that we also focus on very much with the Alby Hub, because this is what allows the Alby Hub to be run anywhere. Like, for example, on the Start9 or on a Raspberry Blitz at home, that is not publicly accessible, but through the Nostr relay, applications can interact with it, and makes it much easier and much faster for apps to do that, and have this kind of programmable, like, messaging layer on top of the wallets, this interoperable messaging layer on top of Lightning in this case, which I think is super powerful. Quite some apps are implementing it, or more apps are implementing it. Hopefully more wallets are implementing it. So I think that's something that we in the Hub focus on, and is also the main kind of API for apps to interact with the wallet, with the Alby Hub.
No, I mean, maybe I'm trash talking Nostr too much here, because I love Nostr and I love these things, these wonderful things that you can build that are completely unstoppable. Of course I love it, and our friend Martin Malmi, for instance, is building a Signal clone on Nostr that works right now, and it's Signal without without any middlemen. So it's fantastic. Like that thing can be built, and also this idea of your own web of trust, and that you can get recommendations and stuff from your peers and the people you know, and how you can, like, how would you say, I wouldn't say monetize, I would say like value-tize your Kevin Bacon score, like how many people you know, and your who's connected to who, and how that can, like, how you can build this. All the web of trust stuff is super interesting to like think about, like what this enables, what this means. So at the same time as I'm like unsure about where Nostr is going and how fast it will, and how much people will crave it. Because, like, I heard some a lot of people have been saying that Nostr is great because no one is arguing on Nostr, but that is the very reason I'm on Twitter in the first place. I want to point out to people that they're wrong on the internet. Like, that's the fun part. So, like, so I don't know how fast adoption comes when you don't have those incentives. But having said that, I'm super excited about a lot of the development that's going on. Yeah, that's what I got.
Great. Anything further on that, Bumi?
I mean, I can only agree. I mean, we had this before. I didn't hear you trash talking or something like that, or criticizing at all. I mean, we're pointing out things, right? And this is a bit the advantage then also of not having or having kind of a protocol and not having a leader that decides on where this is going to, saying, okay, this is only something for social media and we've replaced Twitter and X and so on. And because I kind of think if you want to replace something, it's kind of boring, right? So we already have this, maybe it's slightly better, but you're not convincing necessarily people to just use something that is a bit, has like the same functionality, but a bit different fundamentals somehow. I think the more exciting parts are then happening like around that, and what else can be done with that, and combining things. And this openness, I think, is the USP there. And for us, it's like one thing, Nostr Wallet Connect, right? So, I mean, ultimately, we're using the whole tools and whatever the developers are building and the ideas to do something that actually has nothing to do with social media, but just integrates really well. So, and then Fountain is using it for podcasting. And I think these are the exciting things that are happening there. And these are only possible if you do not have this like one leader who decides on where it needs to go. So.
No, totally agree. Those are the cool things. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. And also, Elon is promoting X as this free speech platform now. But it's good to know that there's an actual free speech platform where you can actually say exactly what you want, and no one on earth can do anything about it. It's
or you can move it where you want to have it, right? So, and it's you're not getting universally blocked or something like
that. No. Anyway, Bumi, it has been great having you on and talking about this and that, and we're looking forward to using our Alby hubs in the future and doing things, walking the walk on every level here, and hope to see you soon. Anywhere you want to send our listeners other than to getalby.com?
You find us on Nostr, hello@getalby.com. You find me on Nostr and Bumi@getalby.com. Find us also on X and other platforms, actually. People can follow there the development. We try to be quite active there. If people have questions, also very important. We try to be there, also educate and help people then, because we know a lot of the things are still very kind of new and complicated. It's a great way for us to learn where people have problem, but it's also then often easy for people if they have a problem and a question, please reach out. We can point you in the right direction, and then often the problems kind of are easily solved. And thank you so much for having me. Quite exciting. Big fan of you, so it was an honor to be here.
Yeah, right back at you. And the support has been great for Alby in general. I've mostly talked to Tomek. He's been great. And no, I have only positives to say, positive things to say about the thing. And people, don't be afraid of Nostr. You don't have to have a master's degree in computer science to get on Nostr. A bachelor's in network technologies will do fine. So go and fire up a Nostr key. Do you know, by the way, what sexual intercourse on Nostr is called, Luke?
I thought it was safe NSEX, or are you?
Yeah, NSEX. Yes. Yeah, safe NSEX. Exactly.
It's actually that's not referring to sexual intercourse, Knut.
What is it then?
The security of your Nostr private key. It's much more.
Oh, all right. Yes.
Yeah. Knut can be immature at times.
Yeah, I can. Sorry about that. You might have to edit this out.
Nope. It's staying in.
That's what she said.
Bumi,
all right,
Bumi, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming on. The feeling is mutual. We're as I said, we're big fans of what you're doing. So keep on doing it, and all the best. And we'll see you out there.
Thank you. See you around.
This has been the Bitcoin Infinity Show. Thank you for listening.